Opinion: need for a comprehensive international health law post-COVID. In light of new WHO pandemic treaty, the COVID-19 pandemic manifested the urgent need to strengthen international health law. Historically, health governance has largely been considered a national matter, regulated primarily through municipal laws. Although the World Health Organization, WHO, is one of the oldest international institutions within international law, the over-reliance on national legal frameworks has hindered the development of a comprehensive international treaty on health law. At present, international health governance relies primarily on soft international law, i.e., non-binding instruments such as guidelines, recommendations, and best practices for member states. However, the COVID-19 pandemic exposed gaps in global preparedness and response mechanisms, necessitating the need for a binding international treaty to coordinate pandemic prevention, preparedness, and equitable response across nations. The International Health Regulations IHR 2005, though adopted by 196 countries, proved insufficient to manage a crisis of this scale. The IHR 2005 replaced the older IHR 1969, which had focused mainly on controlling specific diseases such as cholera, plague, and yellow fever. It was adopted under Article 21 of the WHO Constitution. However, the 2005 regulations expanded their scope but still relied on state compliance without strong enforcement mechanisms. The pandemic also reinvigorated the debate surrounding whether public health should be treated as part of the global commons. Historically, international law identifies areas such as the high seas, outer space, Antarctica, and the deep seabed as global commons, which are resources beyond national jurisdiction and accessible for the collective benefit of humankind. While health has historically been viewed as a domestic responsibility, COVID-19 reinforced the fact that infectious diseases transcend borders, affecting the entire international community. This would impose collective obligations on states to share resources, technology, and data, particularly in pandemic situations. It would also require a shift from national interest-based approaches to collective international cooperation, ensuring equitable access to vaccines, medicines, and diagnostics. The proposed WHO pandemic agreement partially reflects this approach by emphasizing pandemic prevention, preparedness, and equitable response. India's Vaccine Maitri Vaccine Friendship Initiative put into practice the Global Commons approach in practice. Launched in January 2021, the program aimed at supplying COVID-19 vaccines to low and middle-income countries, reflecting India's commitment to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. India exported millions of doses of vaccines to over 90 countries, including those in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. This initiative was not only a form of health diplomacy but also an effort to implement the principle of equity in global health governance. By prioritizing vaccine access for developing countries, India contributed to global solidarity and demonstrated how states can play a rule-shaping role in international health law, even in the absence of a binding treaty. Vaccine Maitri can serve as an example for future obligations under the proposed pandemic agreement, especially regarding technology transfer, intellectual property waivers, and equitable distribution of medical resources. Recognizing the devastating loss of life, economic disruptions, and setbacks to global development caused by COVID-19, WHO member states emphasized the need for permanent global action to prevent similar crises in the future. The objective of the new treaty, often referred to as the WHO Pandemic Agreement, is to ensure that communities, governments, and all sectors of society are better prepared, protected, and able to respond equitably to future pandemics. To negotiate this treaty, WHO member states established the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body (INB), which held its first meeting on February 24, 2022. The INB process has since involved 13 formal rounds of meetings, alongside multiple formal and informal consultations to discuss complex provisions of the treaty for securing the future. Swipe left for next video. The INB submitted its first outcome at the 77th World Health Assembly in May 2024. The final draft has been submitted for consideration at the 78th World Health Assembly in May 2025. The draft addresses gaps and inequities exposed by the COVID-19 pandemic, focusing on equitable access to health products, coordinated funding, and strengthened prevention and response mechanisms. Abhinav Mehrotra and Dr. Biswanath Gupta are associate professors at OP Jindal Global University. Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the authors. They do not necessarily reflect NEWS18's views. Latest blogs.